Fortunately, I also had pleasant encounters during those frustrating days. Having open access to the White House, I met Mrs. Roosevelt several times and liked her as much as I did her husband. I also had a long talk with Bernard Baruch, 1870 to 1965, a member of FDR's New Deal Brain Trust, on a park bench in Lafayette Park, while his bodyguard sat on another bench a short distance away. I arranged for a photographer to take a picture of us, and it came out very well. When I got it, I sent it to my mother with a glowing report of happenings, leaving out the nasty way I was being treated by the Bureau of Investigation. James Shelby Downard. The Carnivals of Life and Death. Interestingly, I listened to a audio show that a friend of mine sent me about James Shelby Downard. It was by Adam Go Rightly. He was on a different show. I'll see if I can put a link up to that. Anyway, of his investigations into James Shelby Downard. There were apparently over the years was some question as to whether or not he was a real person or just a literary invention. He finally came to the conclusion that he was real. Interesting, very interesting character, James Shelby Downard. I might recommend King Kill 33 Degrees for the absolute seminal work on the occult magic associated with places and place names. So, anyway, hello and welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth. I just want to make one off-the-cuff remark, and that is, what the fuck is up with Star Trek? I don't know why I can't recall any time before when a movie's come out that there has been like actual like so-called news around this. And today especially, well, it's, you know, it's starting today. It's the first day for Star Trek, the new movie. But this is the first time I ever recall when a movie has just hit the theaters where they're having actual news stories talking about this. What is this? Is this some kind of new psyop or something? I have no idea what the storyline is in this new movie, but it could be rather interesting to take a look at it and see if we're being fed some kind of new mind control bullshit. Anyway, that's just a little thing to throw out there. I noticed also this past week that the New York Fed chairman resigned. He resigned because he was afraid that there might be an appearance of impropriety, even though there wasn't any impropriety, even though he was affiliated with Goldman Sachs and the Federal Reserve, obviously, and the Goldman Sachs was getting money from the Federal Reserve. So, you know, what is blatantly a fucking conflict of interest is technically not illegal. So anybody in the Federal Reserve, well, I assume since the Federal Reserve is not a federal fucking agency, that anybody in the Federal Reserve can be affiliated with any fucking company. So there may be more people out there in the Federal Reserve who are behind programs to give hundreds of billions of fucking dollars to a bank, say Bank of America or whatever other bank there is that's getting aid from the Federal Reserve, that in fact there may be people in the Federal Reserve who are behind those fucking bailouts who have stock in that company or directly would benefit in some way from it. And it's not illegal. Don't forget, the Federal Reserve has nothing to do with the fucking government. It's an independent bank. Ron Paul put in a bill to audit the Federal Reserve, which would be the first time that was ever done. It's got a lot of co-sponsors. You know, I contacted my congressman and urged him to support it. He wasn't a co-sponsor, but perhaps he would support such a thing. But being outside the jurisdiction of the federal government per se, I imagine that even if Ron Paul's bill is passed by the House and the Senate, that the president would veto it. Just something to think about. And finally, for a bit of out-and-out chicanery, let's talk about Arlen Specter, the revered member of the Senate in my home state of Pennsylvania. What a fucking asshole this guy is. Okay, first, he has a Republican challenger who is blasting him in the polls. Okay, someone who's real conservative, that I have no knowledge of whatsoever and wouldn't vote for in any case. But anyway, so it looked like he was going to lose in the Republican primary for sure. Well, never mind that a couple weeks before all of this stuff happened, he had a press conference and he said, "I'm sticking with the Republicans because, doggone it, the Republicans, they need to have people there in the Senate to counteract all these doggone Democrats." And then, a couple weeks later, here we have some guy named Pat Toomey who is blasting him in the polls. Looks like he's going to get the Republican nomination for the Senate. And all of a sudden, Specter is running scared. So what does he do? After all of those encouraging words about wanting to stay with the fucking Republicans, he switches parties. Which is all great and wonderful. He used to be a Democrat. But don't be fooled by that even, because here's a man who's just looking after his political livelihood. This is what politicians do. This is what fucking politicians do every fucking time they come up to election. The only thing that matters to him is getting reelected. Okay? That's what happens with everybody. Every fucking time there is an election, every single politician puts everything aside in order to get reelected. That's their whole fucking mission. So now we've seen it taken to an even broader scope with wonderful Arlen Specter, because not only did he switch parties so he would avoid losing in the primaries, but now he has come out with a bogus charity organization to supposedly find the cure for cancer. And he has a big website, specterforthecure.com, where you can go and find out about all the wonderful things that Arlen Specter is going to do to find cures for cancer. Oh, he does have Hodgkin's disease, I believe, or I believe it's Hodgkin's or non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, something like that. Anyway, he does have cancer. He did have cancer, and so in the most self-serving way whatsoever, you know, God bless him. He has cancer, and he's beat it a couple times, so that's great, you know, and he should be happy about that. But for Christ's sake, come on. He's playing on people here with a website. Oh, come and see specterforthecure.com and find out all the wonderful things that Arlen Specter is going to do for cancer. But wait! No, no, no! It asks you to donate money, but where does that money go? To cancer research? To cutting-edge medical experimentation? Fuck no! It goes directly to Arlen Specter for re-election. This has got to be a very blatant fucking fraud on the face of it. I can't believe it. That the politicians can go to this length. Now remember, perhaps I'm being a bit hard on Arlen Specter because this is in the news right now. Do not forget, every time there's an election, look at every fucking candidate that's on the slate who's trying to get reelected. and find out for yourself that this is by no means something unusual or strange. Now granted, this may be the first time that someone's concocted a fake charity in order to funnel money into their campaign coffers, but the general tenor of what he's doing is not unusual in the least. So yeah, he's a dick. He's a big fucking dick. But he's no different than all the rest of them. They all do the same thing every time their re-election comes up. Thank you. Good day.